All right, hello everyone. My name is Bella,
I'm Gretchen.
And I'm Katie.
and we did a presentation on the biodynamics of the Guardian Cap in the NFL, and we all had a great time researching it. So we're gonna get right into it.
Okay, so many of you may be asking yourselves, what is this product exactly? So the mushroom helmet, also more commonly known as the Guardian Cap, was developed back in 2010 and is currently worn among many NFL players during preseason practices and several even during games as well. And the helmets are typically worn over their normal helmet, so they may look a little bit bulky in nature. And they are also made of a soft and lightweight urethane material. And the purpose of these helmets is to reduce the impact of head-on collisions.
Okay, so when is it used? According to sources, the mushroom helmet mandated that offensive and defensive linemen, linebackers, as well as tight ends wear the Guardian Cap during the initial weeks of the 2022 preseason. This is due to evidence that showed that these positions experience the most repetitive head impact exposure, also known as RHIE. Evidence also suggests that the preseason is a very critical period when there may be an emphasized vulnerability to concussions and other impact-related head injuries. So again, though there are other positions in a team in the NFL, in NFL football, these specific positions are the ones that get impacted the most.
So the reason this is so important is because over the years, the health losses associated with concussions have become a growing concern. Some of the long-term effects that are a result of concussions include sensitivity to light and noise, significant memory loss, changes in personality, depression, and anxiety. And so the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Equipment was formed in the 1970s to evaluate and certify helmets on whether or not they effectively reduced impact forces and head trauma. And then in the 2000s, manufacturers started shifting their design efforts to produce helmets that mitigated concussion risk. And then in more recent years, helmet add ons were manufactured for players to use during practices to further reduce that risk.
So kind of going off of what Katie said, there are also many long-term and short-term effects that are associated with repeated head impact exposure, making these Guardian caps so important and vital for player health and safety. So actually, a 2017 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, or JAMA, found that after examining the brains of 202 deceased NFL football players, or just players in general, CTE was diagnosed in 177 players across all levels of play, including 110 NFL players. So CTE is actually a degenerative brain disease, also known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, that can develop after repeated head injuries, like concussions. And these symptoms include memory loss, confusion, impulse control problems, aggression, depression, and in extreme situations, suicidality as well. So to help mitigate these extreme risks, the NFL has put into place many regulations that require all positions to wear the Guardian cap during preseason practice and practices with contact back in 2022. And they're also allowed to wear these helmets during games if they choose to. And then, due in part to these NFL mandated rules, a 50% reduction in concussions was seen.
Okay, so what is the biomechanical principle? So the biomechanical principle with the Guardian Cap, the whole idea is to reduce rotational forces. But first, the Guardian Cap works with physics by having a soft outer material that contains kinetic energy absorbing properties, therefore reducing the initial severity of head-on impact. So that's the first part of the Guardian Cap that kind of works first. But next comes kind of the physics of it. So rotational motion, giving you guys a little bit of a background on it, can be described as a combination of rotational forces and rotational energy or angular velocity, which may result from oblique impacts to the head. And the brain is more sensitive to rotational motion than linear motion in regard to concussions specifically. So how does the Guardian Cap work to reduce these rotational forces? Well, it works by doing that. It works to do this by moving slightly, causing a reduction and modification in rotational forces. Many brain injuries result from rotational forces as they cause the brain to move around the skull and twist a little bit. The Guardian Cap is designed to absorb and dissipate rotational forces, reducing the risk of brain injuries. And I just have a short clip to show you all that kind of just reiterates what I'm saying. Again, this isn't specifically the Guardian Caps, but it's just helmets in general, but it is just emphasizing the importance of reducing rotational forces in the NFL.
The new test in slow motion, the neck, allowing the head to twist and move in all directions. Now look at the test side by side. That's the old one on the left and the new one on the right.
The whole point of this is to help cut down on concussions for both NFL players and kids.
Right. The belief is that helmets that reduce the rotational force that the head and the brain experience upon impact are going to help reduce concussions.
Yeah, it's scary when you see it like that.
So again, that was just helmets, not specifically the Guardian Cap, but that does translate to the Guardian Cap in terms of reducing those rotational forces.
Yeah, so in the practical setting, the NFL is very passionate about helping to improve and work towards stronger player health and safety. And they've also made over 50 rule changes since the year 2002, which included a 2018 kickoff rule change. And this is also pretty important because kickoffs represent only 6% of plays, but 12% of concussions. And players had an approximately 4 times the risk of a concussion on the kickoff compared to running or passing plays. And so the NFL Competition Committee has worked to review the previous season's NFL player safety, playing rules, overall game day operations, and injury data to make these rule changes as well. And so I'm sure all of you guys are aware that all players need to have protective gear like a helmet, shoulder pads, knee pads, and thigh pads because football has the highest injury and concussion rate among all sports, regardless of gender. So here's just a photo on the right that shows the current committee members. So these are basically made up of CEOs, coaches, and managers of various NFL football teams.
So even though research on the topic is somewhat limited, the NFL has reported a 50% reduction in concussions following this preseason mandate of requiring the Guardian Cap. And requiring the Guardian Cap can reduce harm, which is head acceleration response metric, by up to 40%. And harm is used to calculate the effectiveness of protective gear based on impact, distance, and acceleration. Even though Guardian Caps are still very new and lack the necessary data to know precisely how effective they are, neurology and sports medicine experts still emphasize that they're extremely important as they help with safety on the field and they encourage players to wear the cap.
Awesome. And then we want to end it with some fun facts that we found. So George Barclay, Joseph Reeves, and James Naismith are all accredited to inventing the first football helmet in the late 1800s, and they were actually first made of moleskin. We also found that Guardian Caps have been adopted by 200 colleges and over 1,500 high schools across the United States. So it's growing, but it's growing slowly. And they are not just used in football, but they are also used in other contact sports, including hockey and lacrosse, which they're much more common in than football. Many players still resist wearing them due to personal decisions as well, including personal style and also seeing it as a sign of weakness to the opposing team. And football players are also known as being creatures of habit, so it just makes them a little bit more reluctant to wearing these caps. And these are the links to the articles that we used. So thank you all for watching. We all had a really great time researching this topic. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching.